Good evening. Welcome to the September 14th, 2017 Water and Sewer Advisory Committee meeting for the City of Jacksonville. Call the meeting to order. All right. We need an adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Do we have a second?
Second.
Everybody in favor, raise their hand. Okay, we've adopted the agenda. We need an approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which is August 10th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
And if everybody approves the minutes, would you please raise your hand? Okay. All right, the first item we have is the emergency spray that occurred at the LTS. Would you like to tell us about that, Wally?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Board. We're going to give you an update of what we've been doing at LTS. It began, as you can imagine, in preparation for Irma, but we thought we'd give you a little bit of history. The emergency action plan for LTS basically sets forth standards where we can emergency spray. And I have those listed for you. They're basically during times where we have or expect extended power outages. They are predicted landfall of a tropical storm system. There is a provision in there for extended periods of historically excessive rainfall, which we really haven't used. And then we have lagoon embankment stability concerns, or when we reach freeboard in our lagoon. So those are the parameters by which we can begin to emergency spray. And of course, all of those are contingent upon we're holding a lot of water in our lagoons. Of course, if we don't have a whole lot of water in our lagoons, then we don't have to worry about emergency spraying.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
People may not understand what emergency spraying is. Is that when you spray in excess of what the state says you're allowed to spray?
No. What emergency spraying is actually spraying when we otherwise would not be able to. For example, if it rains, or if it's a day following a rain event, we're actually not permitted to spray. If we've got standing water or runoff, we're not allowed to spray. And basically what emergency spraying says, if it's raining, we can still spray. If it's a day following a rain event, we can still spray. We can actually irrigate. Now there's still parameters we have to follow, and I'll get to some of those in a few minutes. But it basically says that we can spray regardless of what the weather is doing.
And who says you can't spray after a rain event?
That's in our permit, and it basically said is it a quarter of an inch? Half an inch. So if we receive a half an inch of rainfall today, that affects us being able to spray tomorrow, even if it's 95 degrees and beautiful.
And that's a permit from?
The state of North Carolina.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for clarifying. So we began emergency spraying on August 28th, and that was based on the predicted path of Hurricane Irma. So the real challenge, and what I want you to focus on, is this right here. This is what we were facing. We had, on average, about 1.5 feet from freeboard in all of our lagoons. And we'll talk a few minutes about rainfall and the events that we've been facing. But in August, we had over 12.5 inches of rain. So we were really facing some challenges with water levels in our lagoon. And I have some pictures that'll kind of give you an idea in a few minutes. Here's that total annual rainfall we have. Of course, 2017 is to date. We've had over 51 inches of rain. And you notice in that far right column, it tells you how many days of lost irrigation we've had. So to date, we've had 62 days of lost irrigation. And not only does the amount of rainfall hurt us, the intensity of the rainfall hurts us because of inundating our sewer system. And in addition, of when the frequency of those rain events. So if it rains today and we can't spray today or tomorrow, and then it rains again on Saturday, we can't spray Saturday or Sunday, and then if it rains again on Monday, we still can't spray Monday or Tuesday. So 3 days of rain just took out almost a week of spraying. So so frequency can really be a challenge when we're irrigating. And I put up the historical, the last 5 years of data, and you can see that we're not very, matter of fact, if you compared last year with this year, we're tracking very close to what we saw last year. So as I mentioned, we went into emergency spraying at LTS. The major concerns were, of course, the predicted path of Hurricane Irma, the heavy rains that we see during tropical storms, the increased flow. So not only does it rain at the site, which causes problems for us, but when it rains in town, we have inflow and infiltration that gets into our wastewater system, so we have increased flows. And I'll give you a little bit of that in just a minute. And then one that you may not think a lot about, but strong winds really can cause us problems, whether that's down trees in our spray lanes that we have to then go in and clear, or with our lagoons directly. And I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. And then, of course, power outages. We do have a backup generator at LTS, but right now it just operates the headworks. So we can treat the wastewater coming in, but then we have to store it. We can't actually pump it out to our irrigation fields. So I talked a little bit about wind. I want to show you, this is an aerial of the land treatment site, and we really have two major concerns with wind, especially when we have high lagoon levels. If you'll notice, this is a large open area. So these are our lagoons.
Oh, there we go.
When we get wind coming in this direction and it blows across the open lagoon and then down the South Lagoon, this is called the South Lagoon, it pushes water into this end. And we actually have, when we have as much water, when we're essentially 1.5 feet from freeboard, we're very nervous that wind-driven water could actually push the water out over the berm and cause erosion on the backside of the berm. In addition, when the wind switches, the wind blows across this way, we see the same thing in this corner. And matter of fact, during, I believe it's Hurricane Matthew, we actually had problems in this corner, and we went out and sandbagged this corner to prevent anything from leaving the lagoon.
Where's the main entrance there?
The main entrance, this is Fire Tower Road.
Okay.
Sorry, it didn't draw. That's Fire Tower Road, so this is the entrance into the gate.
Wally, now does that go across the road inside you're showing there? The wind blows, it'll blow over across that road?
Correct. Yes.
But that road was a few feet above, how high is it above
the road,
yeah?
it varies. On the lower end, closer to the road, the berms are up over the road, and as you get further into the site, the elevation of natural ground comes up, and the road is almost even with the top of the lagoons.
So you have your very own personal version of storm surge.
Yes, we do. And anybody that lives on the New River or close to the New River is very familiar. When the wind's blowing directly up the river, it blows it right up the river, and it looks like excessive high tides. And if you get the wind blowing down the river, it does the exact opposite. It looks like excessive low tides. As a matter of fact, I would say the New River is probably more affected by wind than it is tide. Of course, you're the expert.
It's so wide open there, too.
Don't we have an overflow basin?
We do not.
Oh, okay, I thought we had a basin that gave us some ability to let water into.
We do now what we have is an overflow basin at the main pump station, but that would be for water being pumped into our system. So, and it essentially looks like a ground storage tank. but that wouldn't do anything for us at LTS. And that basin automatically opens when flow gets so excessive that the main pump station can't send enough flow out to the land treatment site.
So your only option, if you start to get to freeboard, is to spray.
That is correct. That is the only way to draw
It's
down
not
our
that it's a
lagoons.
preferred method, it's the only method.
That is correct.
Wally, in the interest of clarification again, would you please explain freeboard?
Sure. Actually, I was going to talk about that in just a moment.
Ah, very good.
So when we began emergency spraying, I talked about the level of the lagoons, and I want you to notice in that top right picture, we have a nice little orange line right here that shows where the level was, and this is actually at the pump station that sends water out into the spray fields. To answer your question, freeboard is the maximum level the water can be in the lagoon. And that is about 1.5 feet below the top of the liner, if I remember correctly, in our lagoons.
Yeah, the east-west is 12.5 feet, and the top of the liner is 14. The south is 16
So a foot
feet,
and a half,
and the freeboard is 14 feet.
So that the 1.5 feet, freeboard is 1.5 feet below the top of the liner.
And the liner is below the top of the berm.
Only a little bit. Just enough to tow it in and have a road around it.
Okay, I'm just saying.
It is. So what we've done to date is we've had 9 days of irrigation where we emergency irrigated, and we ran it 12 hours. We ran 2 6-hour shifts. So what that means is we ran 3 zones. We shut for 6 hours. We shut those zones down, and then we ran 3 more zones. And then we shut those zones down, let it rest, and the next day we did the same thing. Part of the problem is, and I'm just going to pick a date, on September 2nd, we ran what I just said. We ran 12 hours, so 6 hours with 3 zones and 6 hours with a different 3 zones. And we put out 11.4 million gallons of effluent, which is great. The challenge is we took in 9.7. So our balance for that one day was less than 3 million gallons. And if I remember Jill correctly, across our lagoons, 1 foot of storage equals somewhere around 52 million gallons. So you can see that was not a fast process.
Were you able to measure the difference?
So we ran, when we realized we just were not making enough ground, what we did is we went to 2 18-hour days, and just picking one of the 18-hour days, we ran, so we did the 6 zone, we did the 3 zones again, ran them for 6 hours, shut down, switched to another 3 zones, ran them for 6 hours, and then switched back to the additional 3 zones. So we did try to build some rest time in there. And just for an example, we did that on September 6th, and we put out 17 million gallons, but we took in 8. So the balance still, the difference was still not significant enough. So we did go to 24 hours.
How many zones are there?
There's a total of, you're going to have 9.
And how
So
many
we
do you
did-
have the capability to spray at a time?
3. 3 is
3 at a
about
time?
yeah.
Okay.
So we have, so you can see we're having problems. So we went to running for 24 hours a day. And that's where we actually made up the difference that you see there in the picture.
So when you say you're out there and spraying for 6 hours, in that 6 hours, what depth of water are you putting out? 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/8 of an inch?
Are you talking about the equivalent across the zone?
Of the equivalent rainfall, like how much water was applied to that,
To those individual zones or to the lagoons?
to the zones? How much was
It
land applied?
varies per zone because not all of the sprinklers are the same. We have different flow rates and we have different amount of sprinklers in each zone. So that would be a Jill answer, actually.
Okay,
And
so,
it would
but
take a
it's
lot
not
of
like you're putting
analysis.
out 3 or 4 inches at a time.
That's correct. That's correct.
And
Is
just
that-
to clarify, that's not me, Jill. That's
That's-
Jill Puff, the chemist
That's correct.
at the land treatment site. Don't ask
So-
me about water volume.
So when we are emergency spraying, we do have increased responsibilities. As you can imagine, we have to have operators in the field. We still are not allowed to have runoff, so we do have to monitor for runoff. And as you can imagine, that can be very difficult when it's raining and it's night. So we did a lot of it by lights and by vehicles. In addition, we have to do daily creek sampling, and it's that you'll notice it says plus 3 days. So when we stop emergency spraying, we will have to sample for an additional 3 days. And what we're looking for is any indication that something left the site. And we have not seen any indication that anything has left our site since we began our emergency spraying. So that's the good news. In addition, we have operators out. I told you we do basically a 3-zone rotation. Those valves have to be manipulated manually, so they have to close the 3 zones that they have open, go over and open the 3 zones that they're going to spray next, and then when, as you can imagine, when we do the next rotation, we do the same process. And then, I talked about the additional monitoring after runoff or for runoff. We still can't have anything leaving the site. So we still have operators out in the field. If we have, if there's runoff or ponding specifically related to one sprinkler, they'll go out and isolate that one sprinkler and let the rest run. So there is manual time in the operators actually being out in the field and monitoring.
How is the land actually looking out there? Is there water standing or is it absorbing it?
It's
Not-
taking it. It just looks like a sponge.
Does
It is extremely wet. The surface water the groundwater table is only about a foot to a foot and a half below land surface.
Yep.
So we don't have much. I mean, it's wet.
It's wet.
You're not gonna dig very far.
I bet not.
When was your last emergency spray?
Was that Hurricane Matthew?
No, I mean,
January.
January.
this time.
What was January?
January was just rain. I mean, the lagoons filled up. We emergency sprayed prior to Matthew because it was coming.
Yes.
Dropped the lagoons down, but then the lagoons, because of the weather and their restrictions, filled back up, and we emergency sprayed in January. This is our
Have you
first
stopped?
emergency spray session.
Have you stopped your emergency spraying this time?
We have not.
So you're still emergency?
We are. And what will, if Jose takes the turn as they forecast, then we will stop. We're going to make sure that Jose takes the path that the weather service has laid out for it, and then we'll stop.
Do you have the sandbags out there for that corner up by Fire Tower Road?
We make them. We keep
They're on site, but
sand.
they're not in place.
Yeah.
Okay. How concerned are you about that corner in the road?
I'm going to go back. Alan, can you erase that for me, or Kevin? The corner you're talking about, thank you. The corner you're talking about is this corner. That corner is less concerning than this area right here.
Flooding down there?
It just happened to be, because this actually works as a funnel. The wind and the water funnel right into that corner. The reason we had sandbags out here was because that happened to be the direction of wind during Matthew. That's.
Oh, okay.
But the major concern is the South Lagoon, this end. And the reason, again, is because it acts as a funnel. It just pushes it in. And if you remember in the CIP, there was a wave break in the capital improvement plan. That wave break was for here. And the idea is it would knock the waves coming from that wind-driven water down some. So that is the reason for that capital improvement project.
What's below that land? What's below that water?
Woods.
Just woods?
Yes. You can see there's a field over here off the corner of the screen, but it's a fairly good distance.
Who owns the field?
I don't remember.
So it's not city property?
It is not city property. Our property stops right about where Wally's got that little red line there.
Okay.
That's pretty close to the boundary.
So if something happened, they would
We're
come
not
back.
gonna let something happen.
If something did, there would be litigation there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, let's see. And here's where we are currently. You can see where we've dropped the South Lagoon from 13.3 feet to 8.3, and there's your freeboard limits again. And the East Lagoon to 9.3, and then the West Lagoon. And what I'll point out about the West Lagoon is the West Lagoon actually fluctuates more than the other three because it is our operating lagoon. That's where the pump station is. So any water from the east has to move to the west to get out, and any water from the south has to move to the west to get out.
Which lagoon had the funnel at the bottom?
That was the south.
South.
Yes. And that's all I have.
All right. Pete, you were going to tell us about the Hurricane Irma mutual aid?
Yes, ma'am. We all know what happened in Florida when it came across. There is every state has a organization that's called the Water and Wastewater Area Response Network or Resources Network, and ours is called NC Water Warn. And the state of Florida, matter of fact, it was the Keys. They put in a request for emergency help through their Florida Warn agency, and that came to all of the southeastern states. The North Carolina region, we all started looking together, pooling our resources, and submitted. So we had the documentation for FEMA and everything else. We put a cost estimate together for what it would take for us to send some resources down there. We all did so from across the state. They were asking for 10 teams, 10 3 to 4 man crews to go down with some equipment, some materials to help them out. So we all submitted. The state of Tennessee also submitted. South Carolina submitted. Georgia is in the process. So Tennessee and South Carolina got their paperwork in prior to us before we did. So they're going to be doing the bulk of the teams, probably 8 or 9 teams. We are waiting on Florida. We submitted ours. We're waiting on Florida to say okay, and we're going to be sending 1 6-man team, or if you want to look at 2 3-man teams, 3 members from the city are going, 3 members from WASAC are going in a joint effort. We're going to be going down there together. We're taking some pipe and some equipment and some manpower. We're going to go down there for 2 days to travel down there, 10 days to work, and then 2 days to travel back. All of which the cost we're going to track is reimbursable by FEMA and or the state of Florida. So it'll be a little bit of a hit on the budget, but as that money comes back, I'm pretty sure Gail will let me have that money back. So, but that is it. I mean, in a nutshell, they've requested mutual aid assistance, and under this agreement, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would want some assistance too. So it's, you know, you can tie it into our one city, our city, my city. Well, this is, you know, one country, our country, my country, and we're going to help out those who need help.
And it's very similar to all electrical crews that have gone down there too.
Our brotherhood, the utilities brotherhood, is just as strong as the electrical brotherhood. We just don't get talked about as much.
So did the crew get volunteered, or did
They,
they volunteer?
what I did, no. I gathered all of the people together, and I explained to them what was going on, and I asked if anybody wanted to volunteer, and I had immediately had at least 3 people volunteer. There were more that volunteered once they went home, you know, and talked to their spouses or whatever. But I have to keep people here to take care of our stuff. So, so the first 3 that volunteered are the 3 that are going. As it stands right now, we're probably going to send them out Saturday morning so they can drive during the day, in the daylight. They'll be staging somewhere near Palm Bay, Florida, somewhere in that area, the Saturday night. Sunday morning, they will get up and they'll have a police escort the rest of the way, stopping at the designated fueling stations. Once we get down there, everything is taken care of. The food, the lodging, the fuel is all taken care of. We just have to document it, you know, photograph and whatever receipts we have. But it's all pretty much staged, ready to go.
I think it's important to note that we're sending 3, and so is WASA.
Right.
And we're sending, you know, equipment, and they're also sending equipment. So it's a great partnership between us and WASA also.
Good joint effort.
It is, and this all came together in less than 2 days. When
Is
time
the
to-
equipment listed a mix of both yours and on
It
WASA's, or
is.
is that what you're
No, that's a
supplying?
mix of both.
It is a
Okay.
mix. WASA's providing a service truck, a covered trailer to bring resources. We're providing a dump truck, an excavator, and we're taking the pipe on our larger lowboy truck, so we can have something to deliver. But we're taking 500 feet of 4-inch pipe, 500 feet of 6-inch pipe, and 500 feet of 8-inch pipe, and some tubing. And again, all this gets reimbursed to us.
Yeah.
Might take a little bit of time, but we'll get it back.
Now, is this a one-time shot, or is this, if they ask for it, keep on?
I think
rotating?
what will happen is, because there were about 8 teams from North Carolina that were already resourced up, it'll probably be, we may pull our crews back and another crew comes in to take our place, but I can pretty much tell you from what I'm hearing, they're gonna need all the help they can get. So there may be more crews that go down there. I mean, they were saying 117 miles worth of service water line has been damaged. So that's a lot of resources. It's a lot of getting it back together. They have no drinking water, they have no fire protection, they have nothing, no power.
In which area are you specifically?
Key West.
Key West.
We're gonna be going to the Keys, anywhere from Key Largo to Key West, wherever they shakes out in that island area, but that's where we're heading.
Okay.
We're gonna stage in Miami-Dade County and then go from there to do the work.
We're blessed in North Carolina that we don't have to have above water piping. And Florida has to have a lot of above water piping because of the geology of the mainland and the islands, because the islands don't have wells. So they gotta bring it in, and they don't bring it in by burying it under the ocean.
Would you let us know how that goes at the next meeting? We'd be interested in
Absolutely.
hearing about that.
Well, I should have some photographs of the damage and the work being done and everything, so we're gonna try to document it. And we're not doing this for the glory, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do to help out our fellow
And you know they
utilities.
would help us too, is the other thing, and that could just as easily happen to us.
I think in the 90s, this organization, the ANC Water Warren, wasn't even formed. So, now it's a good thing.
Good. Anything else, Doug? Jim?
Pete, on this,
Sir.
where it says here about 3 sinkholes, were they caused by what, breaks in the pipe that washed over?
Sewer lines. The defects in the sewer line, and the water just took the sand and brought it into the pipe, and then it created a void, and then the asphalt gave way.
Were they big sinkholes or just
No.
a small?
I don't know, probably, the void underneath the asphalt was probably 2 or 3 feet. But when the asphalt gave way, it was real small. It started, so we got on it, and by the time we got it patched, it was probably a 3x3 or 4x4 patch. So we could, cut it out and compact it back, and then get it into queue for lining.
I've got a question for Wally. You were saying out to the land app that you got one generator. What would another generator do? You said that we didn't have something to do.
So what the Headworks is on generator. Headworks is the
Intake.
point of failure that we are most concerned
Is
with.
that something we need to
And
consider?
so, well, what we have is we do have a backup generator, but we also have a plug to where if something happened to our main generator, Pete has portable generators that he could bring out there and plug up to Headworks and still operate.
Okay.
So the problem with Headworks is, if we don't have power at Headworks and one of the channels gets plugged, then that's where we would have
Now, at the
a
main
spill.
pump station, you've got a big generator in the back of that,
Yes.
but I keep seeing a smaller one on a trailer right
let
there
you
by the
answer.
door.
I'm
Is
sure
that
it's
just
staging.
just a backup that
No,
they
that
have
is,
some place to park?
part of our contingency plan is we have all of our portable generators and our portable bypass pumps staged, pre-staged in specific areas. Whereas if we have a power failure, we know we have a group of pump stations where that particular generator can take care of. So it's centrally staged, so we don't have to come from the shop to wherever and do it. It's already out in the city, so it's less travel time for us and it shortens our response time. But everything we have is part of our contingency plan is pre-staged. And that one just happens to stay there because we know what stations it can run.
I think one thing that James might be getting at is if the power goes out long-term, like down in Florida where they're waiting to try to get it on for a long period of time, wastewater's still coming in, the Headworks has been working, Is there a backup contingency thought of one for the spray fields?
There is not in our CIP now. Part of that's because of cost. It would have to be a massive generator to run those 4 pumps. But that's part of the reason for making sure we have plenty of storage in our lagoons. So as long as we can treat it and store it in our lagoons, we should be fine.
So if they were prioritizing areas to try to get power back,
We're a critical facility.
okay.
So, matter of fact, I think all of our wastewater pump stations are critical facilities. All of our wells are critical facilities. The water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant are all critical facilities. So they get power back first.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, how confident are you that the emergency spraying will solve any possible crisis that comes up with, say, a hurricane or storms coming in, flooding?
That's why we pay a lot of attention to the projected path, and if it's projected to come toward us and we are storing water, like I said, if we're not holding a lot of water, then we're not as concerned. But if, we're very careful to watch the weather and the forecast.
30 inches would be a problem.
Yes.
No matter what,
We've had so
30
much
inches
rain
would be a
already this
problem.
year.
Yes.
I know Pete's been struggling this year already. We've had a
Yes.
lot of rain. And
We
then to
have.
have, storms like that.
So there's the realm of the usual, the realm of the, wow, that was a big one, and the realm of 30-plus inches.
It's just been
Yeah.
it's been a wet 4 or 5 years.
Well, back to your average rainfall, a lot of them were 60s, 70s, 80s. Our average annual rainfall is about 54 inches.
Yes,
So it has been rather wet weather.
it has.
It makes it hard to pump it out.
Yes.
Thank you, Pete, for trying so hard.
You're welcome.
Did you want to cover this under old business or new business?
Let's do it under old business next.
All right.
What do you have for old business, Wally?
You want to talk about the significant events?
Sure. I got it, thank you. Unfortunately, we had our first reportable sewer spill of the year on early September. In preparations for the pending unknown hurricane, if it was coming this way or not, we wanted to move around some generators to higher ground, and the direction that was given was misunderstood by an employee. The employee went to the wrong site to move the generator, and to move the generator he thought he had to unhook the sewer bypass pump at Bryn Mawr, which we have pre-staged for heavy flows. Unknowing to him, he assumed that because the bypass pump wasn't running, that there was no flow on the hose. So when he unhooked the hose, the pumps inside the wet well were running. So he took a shower. And before he could get the clamps tightened back down or get the flow shut off, we put about 5,000 gallons into a tributary of Northeast Creek, which made it a reportable spill. So that one I take the hit for. It's my staff. He made a mistake. I'll take the hit for that one. He learned his lesson, obviously. He did have to go home and change clothes. But as long as there's human interaction, there's going to be mistakes made, and that's what it was. He made a mistake, and that's how I reported it to DWQ. Flat out, my man made a mistake. I'd take that one in the shorts and move on.
What are the consequences of that?
From the state?
Yeah.
I have not heard anything yet. However, with the last one of the spills we had last year at Ellis Station, that was also human error. So the combination, it may play into something. We still haven't heard anything on that one. They're running about 6 to 12 months behind on their investigations. But that is the second human mistake we've had in 2 years. Where the outcome is going to be, I could not tell you.
Thank you.
That one was larger.
That was much larger.
Isn't there one of the areas that you sample on the Northeast Creek there,
We sample above that.
above that?
Right, so we would not have collected any kind of information on that, although the state and you all sampled
We did.
afterwards in that vicinity. But no, we
Follow sampling protocols. And
I
those are
just
done
know
by
that
our
they're
water quality staff.
Through her office, I know there is a number of sites that are sampled every 2 weeks.
Right.
We sample higher up.
And you sample higher up, so it wouldn't,
Are you looking at your training and all?
Yes.
Okay.
Every event, we do a review. It's just, again, it goes back to, we said the generator behind the ball field, and he assumed it was the ball field at Northeast Creek Park. And it was actually the generator behind Phillips Park that we wanted to move. You know, human mistake.
Yeah.
I own it. It was my staff. He screwed up. That's on me.
The other mistake that we made, we actually made changes in our protocols to ensure that it wouldn't happen again, and we shared that with the state.
Okay.
We shared the changes that we made in our procedures.
Okay. Any other old business? Any new business? Mr. Dorn?
The planning and permitting update, you should have a copy of it here in your packet that came in August. Northeast Creek Park improvements in Corbin Street. They submitted a site plan to add a walking trail, a 495 square foot bathroom, a splash pad, and some picnic shelters. Johnstone Supply wants to add an 18,475 square foot expansion to their existing 21,000 square foot building, supply, and contractor's yard. Discount Tires on Western Boulevard wants to take the former Gall's Glass Company, demolish it, and put up a new 7,860 square foot building. And then the NCNG, North Carolina Natural Gas Readiness Center, no, not National Gas, and
National Guard.
National Guard, I was reading something else, has submitted a site plan for proposed 3,132 square foot expansion to the existing 18,000 square foot facility. And that was in August. Now, we had a meeting on Monday night. The only thing came up was an ABRA Glass and Body Shop out on Lejeune Boulevard. There already has a building and all. This is just a part of the next lot over, where they're going to add a paint shop and all. So they're just putting it back on the same thing. And that was it. And WASAC, of course, hasn't had a meeting. They won't have one till next month, so I'll report on that then. Yes, ma'am.
Just out of curiosity, where's the splash pad going at Northeast Creek Park? Is it across the road or is it in the main area?
No, it would be the opposite side of Corbin from the ball fields.
Okay,
It's where the playground equipment is.
Where the playground equipment
Yes.
is? Okay.
Yes.
I was just
And
wondering.
the master plan has a walking trail and the playground equipment being replaced.
How long till that's all gonna be ready, do you think?
I'm not sure. I would have to get that from Deanna, but I can send that out in your next
Okay.
packet.
That's
She might
nice.
go to that.
I got another question for Wally, if you don't mind.
You go for it.
Those things you gave out, that's got, last meeting, those white boxes.
The grease
Right.
containers?
Can they be gotten here at City Hall if somebody wants one?
If we have any left, they can be picked up at City Hall, yes, sir.
Where do they have to go to get them, at the water billing or?
If they don't have I'm not sure that they have them in water billing, but if they'll come see Derek, we'll take care of them. So
Okay.
come to the public services area, and they can just ask the receptionist at the front.
So whether they want water fixtures, the little low flow water kit, so they still have that
Those,
too?
we still have that available, and I believe those are available in water billing. But again, if they need to come see public services, just ask the receptionist, and we'll be happy to take care of that for them. I have one other thing. We're still trying to finalize the agenda, but we're thinking that we may do a joint water sewer advisory committee, city council meeting at City Council's second meeting in October at 5 o'clock. We are planning to give an update on the wastewater collection system, both capacity at the land application site, as well as capacity within the system and planned improvements. Of course, other things may play a role in that because council does not have the normal workshop on October 3rd because that will be a longevity ceremony. So if we have to, we can wait till November to do the joint workshop. But as of right now, tentatively, we're planning on a joint workshop.
Okay.
And Greg and I will be giving that update, supported by Pete and William.
I'm sorry, anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right,
I move to adjourn.
thank you. Do we have a
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, guys.